Today I'm going to show you how to make a bootleg or a remix of any track, old or new, using this awesome tool I discovered. So here's the track we're going to start with. And here's what we'll end up with. Now this tool is actually designed for DJs to make DJ sets, but I found it works perfectly for producers who want to make remixes and bootlegs. It also allows you to just break apart professional songs to see under the hood. It's called DJ Studio, and I first saw it last year at ADE, but I stumbled across it again this year in Ibiza at IMS, and I saw the potential in it for producers, and that's why I wanted to use it today. Now you can get a free trial and try this out. No, I'm not sponsored by them, but if you do end up buying it and you use the link below, it does help support the channel, so thank you. So without further ado, let's hop into the door and get it done. Now I've loaded a few tracks into DJ Studio already, but I've got this one called Gimme the Night by George Benson, which I absolutely love, and I want to make a remix of that. So I'm just going to add it to my mix, which I've already done, so I can go over to my studio. And here we can see it's loaded in. Now the joy of this program is you can actually warp it really accurately using their AI warp function. Because if you ever try to warp an older track that isn't perfectly in sync because it's played by a band, quite often it drifts out of time and Ableton doesn't handle it perfectly. So if it's fixed, it will end up drifting out of time. So let's just put the metronome on. You can hear it's kind of drifting. It's not perfect, but if we hit this AI button, and then we look at this tempo lane, watch what happens. We can see it factors in all these slight variations of tempo very accurately. And now let's have a listen. Well, I'll zoom in. I've got to make sure that I set the beat to the first beat. So I'm going to right click, set as first beat. Now check it out. Nice. Such a tune, this. Alright, so actually before we do this remix or this bootleg, I want to show you what you can actually do if you are a DJ. I'm going to bring in this track, Take Me Away by A-Craze, so let's just bring that in. It's not matched up key-wise, but we can handle that. So you can see it automatically puts this crossfade in, which is great just for DJing. So let's just drag this over and do something a bit fun. I'm actually going to keep the warping to be fixed and not press AI mode because Take Me Away is a modern track, so the tempo is absolutely accurate throughout the entire production. So what I'm going to do is just drag this over. I want the bass to come in just when that last chorus comes in on Gimme the Night. And we're going to switch the bass from Gimme the Night to this A-Craze track. So let's have a listen to this crossfade. It's all automatic. We'll bring it in there. So that's what it's used for DJs. Now, something else you can do that's very cool is you can actually just hit this little button here and it's going to show the 4 separate stems. We will be exporting these soon, but it's cool because you could, in your mix, just decide to turn off the drums or just the vocals and then have the vocals from the other track. So yeah, very cool. Anyway, let's get back to making that remix. So I'm going to head over to library. This is where the fun starts. And I'll go back to those tracks. So if we right click on this George Benson track, hit this stems for Ableton control, we can separate out the stems, but it's also going to warp it perfectly so we can just load it straight into Ableton without having to worry about doing all the difficult warping for an older track. So I'm just going to use the bass and the vocals for this. I think that would be cool. Just going to start the export. Just going to take a second. And then we're going to open that up in Ableton. Boom. Done. Okay, so now I can just double click it like so, which unzips it. We can see we've got the bass and the vocals in there. So we'll double click it. It's going to open up Ableton. And then this is what we end up with. So it's grouped them together. We've got the vocal stem and we've got the bass. Let's just play it with the metronome. We can hear it's perfectly in time. We've got the bass there. Let's go forwards a bit. So there's the vocal and the bass. So now we can make our remix. What I'm going to do is, basically do that now. So I'm going to ungroup them because that's the way I like to work. First thing I want to do is bump up this tempo. we can see that they've automatically been warped to Complex Pro, which is the best for musical stuff so that we don't end up with lots of glitching. Let's go to 126 BPM and create something a bit funky. So I want to use the bass and the vocals. First thing I'm going to do after that is get a kick, a nice big fat kick. And I'm going to go to my favorites and I'm going to get kick number. I mean, we could choose any of them really. I think I'll go with kick number 3 because I want something quite modern for this remix. I'm going to just put it on every beat. Boom, 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 like so. Let's just create a loop first. Let's just make it a bit quieter. We can turn the metronome off because it's all perfectly in time already. See, that's a cool bass lick. I might just keep that bass lick. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a sidechain compressor on there. Now, you could sidechain it from the kick itself, but I prefer to use a shorter, sharper sample that gives you more control, because then you can control the compressor settings, the attack and the release to get the exact length of that duck that you want. A long duck is a strange waterfowl. Very tasty though, actually, if done correctly. Doesn't matter what sound you get. Let's just get a short, sharp tick like so. And we are just going to program this in on every beat. Now, you never actually hear this, so it doesn't matter which sound it is as long as it's very short and has a fast transient. Like so. So we'll just use this hat. Then I'm going to set this to sends only, so we'll never hear it. That's our sidechain track. Let's just call that a sidechain trigger. And now we can make everything bounce in time with that sidechain trigger. Let's just color this correctly. We'll color it green, natural color of drums. Then we're going to color, let's just rename that vocal. That's already the natural color of the throat, so we can leave it that. No, let's make it throatier. Lovely. And then we've got bass, which, as you know, is going to be yellow. I don't know why. I just like it. It's a nice combination of colors, isn't it? Right. So now we're back to an even keel. Let's put a compressor on there. We're just going to use a standard compressor on the bass. We're going to open up this little button here, hit sidechain mode, and take the input from sidechain trigger. Now, when we pull this down, listen to what happens. The bass is going to start bouncing in time with the kick. We're going to set a very fast attack. So let's listen to that bass on its own. This is without the sidechain compressor. And with it. So we can hear it ducking now. Whack, whack, whack. Sidechain comp. And now I'm just going to copy that and put that on the vocals as well, although we won't be able to hear the vocals yet. So what I want to do is now get the loop from the vocal that I really like. And Gimme the Night is the hook of the track.
Cause there's music in the air and lots of loving everywhere. So give me the night. Give me the night.
So this is the loop we'll use. So we're just going to loop that. And then this Gimme the Night bit is what we're going to loop round, like so. Just pop that there.
Give me the night.
Now let's just
Give me the night.
put that compressor on there and make it dark but slightly left.
Give me the night.
Now we've got...
Give me the night.
Cool. So what I want to do now is fatten this bass up because it's taken from an old track and we need to, you know, have it stand up against modern productions. So we could create a separate sub bass channel, but what I'm going to do is use a multi-band dynamics before the sidechain bounce. In fact, let's just turn off the sidechain bounce for the time being. And what I want to do is thicken up the low end on this. And then I'm going to give it some stereo width too. So let's just compress the low frequency because this is high, mids and lows, and then boost it up in volume. We can do that with the mid-range a bit as well. So this is where we were. Just a bit thicker and richer. Now, there's something else I really want to show you, which is very cool. If we, after this, we've done our multi-band dynamics. Now what I want to do is split this into 3 separate channels. Actually, I'm going to split it into 4. And this is where we can get the stereo width without messing up the phase in the low end. So the way I'm going to do that is find I love this amp. I'll use a distortion unit. Now, if we listen to this at the moment, it's going to affect the entire signal and it's still very mono. So what I'm going to do is now group this like so, open up the chains here, right click, create chain, and this is our dry chain. This is our normal one. Now this, we have got distorted. So to make this wide, I'm going to take out the low end of this distorted channel. So it's just the high ends that we're going to be affecting. And now I'm going to duplicate it. So now we've got 2. And the second one, I'm going to distort slightly differently. Maybe choose a different mode. And now, because these 2 channels are distorted slightly differently, what I can do is pan one left and one right. And now listen to what happens. We've got our middle channel, which is in the middle, obviously. And then if we turn that off, we can hear we've got the left and the right channels. And now we've got this really nice wide bass sound. Like, check this out now. This is where it was. It's really mono. That's much more modern sounding. Excellent. Okay, next thing we need to do is get some drums in here. Now you could use a loop straight away, but I'm actually going to just find some MIDI drums and then I'll augment it with a loop. So this is because you've got ultimate control. If you've got separate control over the volume of your clap and your snare and your kick and your main hat, then you can get a better mix basically. Whereas if you just use a loop and everything's just in one sample, it's much harder to get it sounding exactly how you want. And let's load in that sample that we just found. Now, where's it gone? Come back. I think it was this one. So let's just load that in. And now let's program it in on every other kick. Now with these pre-transient samples where you've got like a slight click before the main hit, we'll have to pull it back slightly in the grid. Because if we were to listen to this, it just sounds like it's hitting a bit late. So we need to pull that over off the grid slightly, like so. Like so. That's good. So let's just double that up. I'm actually going to compress the vocals too and make them a bit more up front. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is get a main snare, a main hat in there, sorry, because we've already got a snare. So let's go get one like that. Very important to have favorites. It makes working much, much quicker. So in between every kick. Now I'm going to get a loop underneath that, a drum loop, because we've already got the main drums in now, the core drum sounds. So now we can add that little bit of shuffle, something a bit more interesting with those 16th beats. And we can preview them as we go. That's cool. And I would just write a note of several that I like and then whittle it down and pick the strongest one. Ooh, bongos. So we'll bring it in. It's quite a simple one like this. Just some interesting sounds. Complex Pro. Because we've already got a clap or a snare, we don't necessarily want to hear all of that. So I'm going to just copy and paste the sidechain compressor on there again. And then we're going to bounce that loop like this. And we're going to filter out some of the low end because we just don't need it. Look at all this low end. And now with everything else. Last thing we need for this loop is like a syncopated riff. So what we could do is we could go back to DJ Studio and choose to export the instrumentation as well as just the bass and the vocals. So let's do that, and then I'm going to load it in. Boom. So I've brought in the melody and just chopped everything else apart from that one loop. So now we've got this. So it's everything that's not the drums or the bass or the vocals, which is very useful for this kind of remix because we can either ditch that and just make our own more modern remix, or we can use this to add to the vibe. So I'm going to go to the sidechain compressor, and having them separate stems as opposed to just using the track as a sample allows us way more control over the mix and the processing. So now our bass is sounding super fat like this and stereo. And now let's listen to the other instruments. And now we can add effects to the vocals. For example, we could put something crazy like Little Altar Boy, and we could tone the whole thing down. I'm not saying this will sound good, I'm saying we can do it. We could do a mix of that, just to add some more bass. And we can actually do that with the bass as well, because, as I said, we don't have the sub bass line separate. So what we can do with these separate stems is create another chain. If you remember that effect rack we had earlier, create chain. And then on this one, we are going to put a Little Altar Boy. So this is a third-party plugin, but it allows us to now pitch this down. So it's gone from this bass line to this. So an octave down, which sounds a bit weird on its own, but when we just feed a little bit under our main bass line, it's really going to thicken it up. So now we can compete with modern tracks because we've got that lovely, fat, deep, rich bass. Okay. So that's how you use it. I'm going to change the drums around a bit. I don't really like that loop, so I'll spend a few more minutes on this. And you can listen to it playing in 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
You know the spirit of the party starts to come alive. The day is dawning.
Tune.
Can throw out all the blues and hit the city lights. Cause the star's falling. You know the spirit of the party starts to come alive. The day is dawning. Can throw out all the blues and hit the city lights. Cause the music in the air, lots of loving everywhere. So play the night.
Let me know if I should finish this below in the comments, because I'm absolutely loving this. So yeah, check out the software below, use that link if you want. And if you want me to show you more in-depth remixing techniques, then you can check the video that's popping up right there. And if you want expert tuition on how to get your music to a professional level as quickly as possible, you can also check out the Accelerator program. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you over at the next video.